The emergency room doors exploded inward at 11:47 p.m., and the world turned red. Blood sprayed across white tile. A gurney slammed sideways into a medicine cart, scattering syringes like confetti. Someone screamed, high, broken, the kind of sound that meant bones weren't where they should be. The paramedics were shouting vitals over each other, numbers climbing, dropping, flatlining, cardiac arrest, punctured lung, suspected spinal. The fluorescent lights above buzzed like they were dying too. And in the center of it all, while doctors froze and residents scrambled, a woman nobody had bothered to learn the name of reached for a pair of latex gloves. She didn't run, didn't shout, just snapped them on, 1, 2, like she'd done this 1,000 times in places a lot worse than Redwood Mercy Hospital. Her eyes were the only thing moving fast. Elena Voss had been a ghost for 3 months, a shadow in scrubs. The kind of nurse people walked past without seeing, the one they handed paperwork to because she was too slow for the real work. Tonight she was about to remind them what real work actually looked like. By morning, some of them would owe her their lives, others would owe her their careers, and one of them, just one, would lose everything. If you want to see how far this story reaches, drop a comment with the city you're watching from. Hit subscribe, stay till the end, and let's see if justice really does catch up. The crash victims weren't supposed to survive the ride to the hospital. 5-car pileup on Route 49, just outside Millbrook city limits. Head on at 70 miles an hour. Metal twisted into shapes that didn't have names. The first responders said it looked like a war zone, which was ironic because the only person in Redwood Mercy's ER that night who'd actually seen one wasn't allowed to touch the patients. Elena Voss stood beside the supply closet, hands folded, watching the chaos unfold like a silent film. She'd been there since 6 p.m., pulling a double after another nurse called in sick. Nobody thanked her. Nobody noticed. That was fine. She noticed them. Doctor. Marcus Hale was the first to arrive, lab coat flapping, stethoscope swinging like a pendulum. He had the kind of confidence that came from never being wrong in front of people who mattered. Tall, early 40s, with salt and pepper hair that made him look distinguished in photos. He barked orders at the residents, didn't look at Elena once. Get me a central line kit. Where's the attending? Someone page surgery. Move, people, move. The first gurney came through. Male, mid-30s, unconscious. Face swollen, blood pooling under the skin like someone had stuffed grapes beneath the surface. His chest rose and fell unevenly, like a car engine stuttering out. The paramedic rattled off vitals, BP dropping, oxygen saturation at 89, possible internal bleeding. Hale didn't even glance at the monitor. Stabilize him and get him to imaging. Next. Elena's eyes flicked to the patient's neck. The angle was wrong, slight, but wrong. She took one step forward. Doctor, not now. He didn't turn around. She stopped. Watched the gurney roll past. Watched the resident fumble with the IV line, hands shaking. Watched the patient's lips start turning blue. The second gurney came in. Female, late 20s, conscious but dazed. Lacerations across her arms, a gash above her eyebrow leaking red down the side of her face. She kept trying to sit up, mumbling something about her daughter. The resident tried to hold her down, but she was stronger than she looked, fueled by panic. Ma'am, you need to stay still. My daughter. Where's my daughter? Hale stepped in, calm, controlled. Sedate her. We can't work if she's thrashing. Elena moved before she thought about it. She was beside the woman in 3 strides, hand on her shoulder, voice low. Your daughter's being taken care of, I promise, but I need you to breathe for me. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Can you do that? The woman's eyes locked onto hers, wild, searching, pupils blown wide with fear. Then something in her face cracked and she nodded. Elena kept her hand there, steady pressure, grounding. Good. Keep breathing. We've got you. The resident blinked. Hale frowned. I didn't ask for your help, Voss. She's not sedated, Elena said simply, and she's breathing on her own. He stared at her for a long second, then turned back to the trauma. Fine. Just stay out of the way. She stepped back, but she didn't stop watching. The third victim came in seizing. Fourth had a collapsed lung. Fifth was a kid, maybe 16, unconscious, pupils uneven. Hale moved between them like a conductor, directing the chaos into something resembling order. He was good. Elena could admit that. But good wasn't the same as careful. The first patient, the one with the wrong neck angle, was prepped for a CT scan. Elena saw the resident reach for the backboard, saw the way they were about to log roll him without stabilizing the cervical spine first. She crossed the room in 4 steps. "Stop!" The resident froze, hand halfway to the patient's shoulder. "What?" "Don't move him like that." Elena's voice was quiet, but it cut through the noise. "His C-spine isn't cleared. If you roll him wrong, you could sever the cord." The resident's face went pale. I was just following. I know." Elena pulled on gloves, smooth, automatic. "But you're going to do it my way now." She positioned herself at the patient's head, hands firm on either side of his skull. Her fingers found the mastoid processes, the base of the occipital bone, landmarks she could find in the dark. On 3, slow, keep the spine neutral. 1, 2, 3. They moved together. The patient's body shifted as one unit, no twisting, no jerking. Elena's hands never wavered. When they set him down on the CT table, she checked his pupils again, felt for a pulse at his wrist. Steady, stronger than before. The resident exhaled like they'd been holding their breath for hours. "Thanks." Elena didn't answer. She was already walking back to the ER. Hale caught her halfway. "You don't make calls like that without consulting me first." "You weren't there." "I was managing 5 other patients. And I was stopping one from becoming a quadriplegic." His jaw tightened. "You're a floor nurse, Voss. You do intake. You do paperwork. You don't override my residents." Elena met his eyes. She didn't blink. "I do what keeps people alive." For a moment, neither of them moved. The hallway felt smaller, the air thicker. Then Hale's pager went off, and he turned away without another word. Elena went back to her corner by the supply closet. She didn't need to be in the center. She could see everything from the edges. The woman with the lacerations was stitched up and moved to observation. The kid with the uneven pupils was rushed to surgery. Brain bleed, they said, caught just in time. The man with the collapsed lung was intubated and stable. One by one, the chaos thinned out, and the ER started to breathe again. By 2 a.m., the only sound was the hum of machines and the soft shuffle of nurses restocking supplies. Elena stood at the nurse's station, filling out charts. Her handwriting was neat, methodical. No wasted space. No mistakes. She'd been taught that letters could mean the difference between life and death when someone else had to read your notes in a hurry. A voice came from behind her. "You're the one who caught the spinal thing." She turned. One of the other nurses, Marissa Chen, younger, sharper, with her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, was leaning against the counter, arms crossed. "I just saw what was happening," Elena said. "Yeah, well, Hale didn't, and he's pissed. He'll get over it." Marissa snorted. "You really don't care, do you?" Elena capped her pen. "I care about the patients. Not about making friends? Friends don't keep people alive." Marissa studied her for a second, eyes narrowing like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Then she shook her head. "You're weird, Voss, but I like you." Elena almost smiled. Almost. The next shift started at 6 a.m. Elena was supposed to go home at 7. She didn't. Another nurse called in, 3rd one that week, and the floor was short-staffed, and someone had to cover the post-op check-ins. She volunteered. Nobody argued. Nobody ever did when Elena volunteered because it meant they didn't have to. By noon, she'd been awake for 30 hours straight. Her eyes were dry, her back ached, but her hands were steady. They were always steady. She was in the middle of adjusting an IV drip when Dr. Hale appeared in the doorway. He didn't say anything at first, just watched her work. Elena could feel his eyes on her, tracking every movement. When she finished and turned around, he was still there. "You pulled a double and then stayed for another 6 hours." "Someone had to." "That's not your job." "It was today." He exhaled through his nose, slow, like he was counting to 10. "Look, Voss, I'm not going to pretend last night didn't happen. You made a good call, but you can't just override you? Go rogue." Elena tilted her head. "Is that what you think I was doing?" "What else would you call it?" "My job." Hale's jaw worked. He looked like he wanted to say something else, but his pager went off again. He glanced at it, sighed, and left without another word. Elena watched him go. Then she went back to work. The rest of the week passed in a blur. Shifts blended together. Patients came and went. Elena moved through them all like water, fluid, silent, always there when it mattered. She didn't speak unless she had to, didn't smile unless it helped. People started calling her the quiet one, which was fine. She'd been called worse. On Thursday, a memo went around. New policy. Floor nurses were no longer permitted to make independent care decisions without direct physician approval. It didn't name anyone specifically, but Elena knew it was about her. The timing was too convenient, the wording too pointed. Marissa found her in the break room that afternoon. You see the memo? Elena was drinking coffee. Black, no sugar. The break room smelled like burnt popcorn and disinfectant. I saw it. That's bullshit. You saved that guy's life, and now they're covering their asses. You're not mad? Elena set down her cup. The ceramic made a soft click against the table. Being mad doesn't change policy. So what, you're just going to what? Follow orders like a good little nurse? Elena looked at her. I'm going to do what I've always done. Keep people alive, with or without permission. Marissa stared at her for a long moment, then laughed, short and sharp. You're either brave or crazy. Probably both. That night, Elena was reassigned to admin duty. No patient contact, just forms, charts, insurance codes. The kind of work designed to bury someone quietly. She didn't complain. She took the desk in the back corner, opened her laptop, and started typing. But her eyes kept drifting to the ER entrance, watching, waiting. The hospital had a rhythm, if you paid attention. A pulse. She'd learned to read it the same way she'd learned to read a battlefield, by the spaces between the noise. Right now, those spaces were getting longer, quieter. That usually meant something was about to break. At 9:13 p.m., the ambulance lights flashed outside. Elena's fingers stopped mid-keystroke. Two paramedics burst through the doors, wheeling in a gurney at a dead sprint. The patient was a woman in her 50s, gray-faced, gasping. The medic was shouting, respiratory distress, oxygen sat 72, history of COPD, unresponsive to albuterol. Hale was already there, snapping on gloves. Get her on high-flow oxygen. Where's respiratory? On the way. Elena stood up, slowly. Her chair scraped against the floor, but nobody heard it over the commotion. She couldn't see the patient's face from where she was, but she could see the monitor, could see the numbers dropping, could see the way the woman's chest heaved, ribs jutting out with every breath, muscles straining like ropes pulled too tight. That wasn't COPD. Elena moved toward the trauma bay. One step, two. Hale didn't notice her. He was focused on the IV line, the oxygen mask, the protocol, everything by the book. The residents clustered around him like ducklings, mimicking his movements, his urgency. The woman's lips were turning blue. Elena crossed the threshold. Doctor. Hale didn't look up. Not now, Voss. She's not hypoxic. She's obstructed. His head snapped toward her. Excuse me? Look at her neck, right side. There's a mass. Probably a hematoma pressing on the trachea. She's not getting air because something's blocking it. Hale's eyes flicked to the patient's neck. For half a second, his expression flickered. Doubt, recognition, something close to fear. Then he turned back to the resident. Get me an ultrasound, now. The resident scrambled. The machine rolled in, wheels squeaking. Hale ran the probe over the woman's neck, gel smearing across the skin, and the screen lit up, dark mass pressing against the windpipe, cutting off the airway like a hand around a throat. He swore under his breath. We need to decompress it. Scalpel. Elena was already holding one. Hale stared at her. Then he took it. The incision was quick, clean. Blood welled up, dark and thick, and then air. A wet, choking gasp as the pressure released. The woman's chest expanded, shoulders dropping, color flooding back into her face like someone had turned a dial. The monitor beeped. Oxygen saturation climbing. 80, 85, 90. Hale set down the scalpel. His hands were shaking. Elena stepped back, silent, invisible again. The room was quiet except for the beeping machines and the woman's ragged, beautiful breathing. Hale looked at Elena. really looked at her for the first time since she'd started working there. How did you know? Elena didn't answer right away. She just glanced at the patient, then back at him. Because I've seen it before. His eyes narrowed. Where? Before she could answer, the ER doors slammed open again. But this time, it wasn't an ambulance. It was 3 men in dark uniforms, tactical boots, insignias on their shoulders. One of them had a radio clipped to his chest, crackling with static. They moved with the kind of precision that came from training, from discipline, from knowing exactly where they were going and why. The lead officer scanned the room, eyes hard, professional. Then he spoke, voice cutting through the noise like a blade. We're looking for Elena Voss. Every head in the ER turned. Elena didn't move. The officer's gaze landed on her, held. Ma'am, you need to come with us. Hale stepped forward. Wait, what's going on? She's on duty. The officer ignored him. Ms. Voss, this is a matter of national security. We need you to come with us. Now. Elena's face didn't change. She looked at the woman on the gurney, breathing, stable, alive. Then she looked at the officer. Give me 2 minutes. The officer hesitated, then nodded, once. Elena turned back to Hale. Her voice was quiet, even. She's going to need monitoring for the next 6 hours. The hematoma could re-expand. If her breathing changes, don't wait. Intubate. Hale just stared at her. Elena pulled off her gloves, dropped them in the trash, and walked toward the officers. Marissa grabbed her arm as she passed. Elena, what the hell? Elena looked at her. I'll be back. When? She didn't answer. The officers escorted her out through the ambulance bay. The doors closed behind them with a soft hiss. Outside, the night air was cold. Elena could see her breath. 2 black SUVs were parked at the curb, engines running. The lead officer opened the back door of the first one. Ma'am? Elena climbed in. The door shut behind her. Inside the ER, the silence was deafening. Hale stood frozen, staring at the spot where she'd been standing. The woman on the gurney coughed, a wet, painful sound, and someone moved to adjust her oxygen. But Hale didn't move. One of the residents finally spoke, voice small. Who was she? Hale didn't answer, because he didn't know. Nobody did. The SUV pulled away from the hospital, tires crunching over gravel. Elena sat in the back seat, hands folded in her lap. The officer in the passenger seat turned to look at her. Ma'am, I apologize for the abruptness, but we have a situation that requires your expertise. Elena didn't ask what kind of situation. She already knew. They wouldn't send military unless it was bad. Where are we going? Staging area, 15 minutes out. We'll brief you when we arrive. She nodded, looked out the window. The city lights blurred past, orange and white streaks against the dark. She'd known this would happen eventually. You couldn't stay invisible forever, not when you had a file, not when your name was in a database somewhere tagged with words like specialized and recall ready. She just hadn't expected it to be tonight. The SUV turned onto the highway, accelerating smoothly. Elena closed her eyes, counted her breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth. An old habit. One that had kept her alive more times than she could count. Behind them, Redwood Mercy Hospital was already fading into the distance. Inside the break room, Marissa was pacing. This doesn't make sense. National security? She's a nurse. Another nurse, older, looked up from her phone. Maybe she did something, got involved in something. Elena? No way. She barely talks to anyone. Then why would they take her? Marissa didn't have an answer. She pulled out her phone, opened the staff directory, found Elena's profile. There was almost nothing there. Hired 3 months ago. RN license. No photo. No previous employment listed. She frowned. That's weird. What? There's nothing here. No work history, no references. How did she even get hired? The older nurse shrugged. Maybe she knew someone. But Marissa wasn't convinced. She opened a browser, typed in Elena's name. Nothing came up. No social media. No LinkedIn. No digital footprint at all. It was like she didn't exist. Back in the ER, Hale was still standing by the trauma bay. The woman they'd saved was stable now, breathing easy, color back in her cheeks. He should have felt relief. He should have felt pride. Instead, he felt something cold settling in his chest. He replayed the last 3 months in his mind, every interaction with Elena Voss, every time she'd been right, every time he'd dismissed her. She wasn't just good, she was too good, and now she was gone. He pulled out his phone, dialed the hospital administrator's number. It rang twice before someone picked up. "It's Dr. Hale. I need you to pull a file for me. Elena Voss. I want to see everything." There was a pause. "I'll see what I can do." Not see, do, tonight. He hung up. Something was wrong, and he was going to find out what. The SUV pulled off the highway, turning onto a narrow access road. No signs, no lights, just trees and darkness. Elena opened her eyes. They were slowing down. Ahead, she could see a staging area, portable lights, military vehicles, tents, people in uniform moving with purpose. A command center. The SUV stopped. The officer opened her door. "Ma'am." Elena stepped out. The ground was uneven, gravel and dirt. She could hear voices, radios crackling, the low hum of generators. A man approached, older, maybe late 50s, with the kind of face that had seen too much and stopped showing it. He wore fatigues, 3 stars on his collar. A general. He stopped in front of her, looked her up and down, then extended his hand. "Senior Combat Medic Voss. It's been a long time." Elena shook his hand. "General Marks. I wish I could say this was a social call. It never is." He nodded, then gestured toward the command tent. "Walk with me." They crossed the staging area. Elena took it all in, the equipment, the personnel, the controlled urgency. This wasn't a drill. This was real. Marks led her inside the tent. Maps on the table, screens showing satellite feeds, a dozen officers hunched over consoles. He pointed to one of the screens. 2 hours ago, a convoy was ambushed 20 miles north of here. Military transport, 8 personnel, 3 civilians. We have 4 confirmed casualties, 6 injured, 2 critical. Elena's jaw tightened. "And you need me because the nearest trauma surgeon is 3 hours out, and those 2 critical patients won't last that long. We have field medics on site, but they're in over their heads. One patient has a tension pneumothorax. The other has a femoral artery bleed they can't control." "You're setting up a field hospital?" "We already did. But we need someone who can keep them alive long enough to get them out. Someone with experience. Someone who's done this before." Elena looked at the map. The location was remote, forested, no nearby infrastructure, just like the places she used to work. "How fast can you get me there?" "Helicopters waiting, 10 minutes out." She nodded. "I'll need a kit. Surgical supplies, blood products." "Already prepped." Of course it was. They'd planned this before they even picked her up. Mark stepped closer, voice dropping. "Voss, I know you've been out for a while. I know you were trying to disappear, but right now, you're the only chance those soldiers have." Elena met his eyes. "I didn't stop being a medic when I left. I just changed the uniform." "Then let's get you back in one." 5 minutes later, Elena was in the air. The helicopter cut through the night, blades chopping the darkness into rhythm. She sat in the back, kit beside her, going through the inventory. Chest tubes, hemostatic gauze, sutures, plasma expanders, everything she'd need. She'd done this before, dozens of times. In deserts, in mountains, in places where the nearest hospital was a fantasy, and the only thing between a soldier and death was her hands. She thought about the ER, about Hale, about the woman whose throat she'd saved. They probably thought she was in trouble, maybe under investigation, maybe arrested. They had no idea. The pilot's voice crackled over the headset. 2 minutes to LZ. Elena strapped the kit to her back, checked the fastenings, took a breath. 2 minutes. And then she'd be exactly where she belonged. The helicopter touched down in a clearing that wasn't on any map. Dust and dead leaves exploded outward as the skids hit dirt. Elena jumped out before the pilot cut the engine. Kit slung over her shoulder, head low beneath the rotors. The noise was deafening, a wall of sound that pressed against her chest. Then the blades began to slow and the forest rushed back in. Wind through pine trees, distant shouts, the metallic smell of blood. A soldier ran toward her, rifle bouncing against his chest. Young, maybe 22. His face was streaked with dirt and something darker. "You the medic?" "Where are they?" "This way." He turned and ran. Elena followed. The field hospital was a joke. Two tents, barely standing, lit by battery-powered lamps that cast long, jittery shadows. Equipment scattered across folding tables. Bloody gauze piled in a corner. Three soldiers standing outside, smoking, hands shaking. They looked up as Elena approached, and she saw it in their eyes, the kind of fear that came from watching people die and knowing you couldn't stop it. Inside the first tent, the air was thick with copper and sweat. A man lay on a stretcher, chest bare, skin slick with blood. His breathing was fast, shallow, wrong. Another medic knelt beside him, pressing gauze to a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. The medic looked up when Elena entered. Relief flooded his face. Thank Christ, I can't get the bleeding under control. Femoral artery. I tried clamping it, but Elena dropped her kit, snapped on gloves. Move! He didn't argue, just stepped back, hands red to the wrists. She knelt beside the patient. The wound was high on the inner thigh, jagged, deep. Blood pulsed out in rhythm with his heartbeat. His face was pale, lips tinged blue. Shock setting in. She had maybe 10 minutes before his body gave up. Get me a tourniquet, and I need 2 units of Oneg now. The medic scrambled. Elena pressed her fingers into the wound, feeling for the artery. It was slippery, pulsing, trying to slide away from her. She found it, pinched it between her thumb and forefinger. The bleeding slowed. The tourniquet came. She wrapped it high on his thigh, cranked it tight. The bleeding stopped. His pulse was thready, but there. Start a line. Wide bore. Push fluids. The medic worked fast. Elena checked the patient's pupils. Reactive. Good. She pressed her fingers to his neck, carotid pulse present. Weak, but there. What's his name? Sergeant Browning. Elena leaned close to his ear. Browning, stay with me. You're going to be fine, but I need you to stay awake. Can you do that? His eyes fluttered open, unfocused. He tried to speak, but nothing came out. Don't talk. Just squeeze my hand if you can hear me. His fingers twitched against her palm. Barely. But it was something. The IV was in. Fluids running. Elena checked the tourniquet. Tight. No bleeding. But she couldn't leave it on forever. He'd lose the leg if she did. I need to get in there and tie off the artery. Do we have surgical tools? The medic nodded, already pulling a field kit from a supply crate. Clamps, sutures, not ideal, but it would work. Elena washed her hands in a basin of clean water, scrubbed them with iodine. No time for a sterile field. No time for anesthesia, just her, the wound, and whatever skills she had left. She cut away the tourniquet, and blood welled up again. She worked fast, fingers moving on instinct. Found the torn artery, clamped it, tied it off with sutures that would hold long enough to get him to a real surgeon. The bleeding stopped. She sat back. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline catching up. Get him stable and prep him for evac. He needs a hospital, but he'll make it. The medic exhaled. Sis, I thought he was gone. He's not. Elena stood, pulled off her gloves. Where's the other one? Next tent, tension pneumo. We tried to decompress it, but I think we missed. He's crashing. Elena grabbed her kit and ran. The second tent was worse. The patient was a woman, mid-30s, short dark hair matted with sweat. Her chest wasn't moving right, one side rising, the other flat. Her lips were blue, eyes rolled back. A medic was doing chest compressions. Another was squeezing an ambu bag, but it wasn't working. Elena crossed the tent in 2 strides. Stop compressions. The medic hesitated. But she's coding. Stop. He stopped. Elena pressed her fingers to the woman's neck, right side. The trachea was deviated, pushed to the left. Distended neck veins. Classic tension pneumothorax. Air trapped in the chest cavity, collapsing the lung, pressing on the heart. Every second made it worse. I need a 14-gauge needle. Now. Someone handed it to her. Elena found the second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line. Didn't hesitate. Pushed the needle through skin, muscle, into the chest cavity. There was a hiss, air rushing out. The woman's chest expanded. Her lips started to pink up. Resume compressions. Gentle. Don't break ribs. The medic started again. Elena inserted a chest tube, secured it, connected it to a drainage system. Air bubbled out, slow and steady. The woman's oxygen saturation started climbing on the monitor. 60, 70, 80. Her eyes fluttered. She coughed, a wet, choking sound. Easy. Don't move. You're okay. The woman's eyes found hers, confused, terrified. What's your name? Lieutenant Ortiz. Ortiz, you had a collapsed lung. I just fixed it. You're going to be fine, but you need to stay still. Understand? Ortiz nodded, barely. Elena checked the chest tube. Draining well. No active bleeding. Pulse strong. She'd make it. She stepped outside the tent. The night air hit her like cold water. She sucked in a breath, held it, let it out slow. Her hands were still shaking. General Marks was waiting. He must have flown in after her. He stood near one of the vehicles, arms crossed, watching. Elena walked over. They'll both live. Browning needs vascular surgery within the next 6 hours. Ortiz needs imaging to make sure there's no other damage, but they're stable. Marks nodded. Good work. It's what I do. I know. He paused. I also know you didn't want to come back. Elena looked at him. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. Not when people are dying. He smiled just a little. That's why I called you. A soldier approached, handed Marks a radio. He listened for a moment, his expression hardening. Then he handed it back. We have a problem. Another casualty? No, the ambush wasn't random. Intelligence says it was targeted. Someone knew that convoy was coming through. Someone with access. Elena's jaw tightened. A leak? Looks that way, and until we plug it, everyone on this operation is at risk. What does that have to do with me? Because you're part of the operation now. And if someone's watching, they'll know you're here. Elena processed that. You think I'm a target. I think everyone here is, but you especially. Your skill set makes you valuable, and valuable things get taken. She looked back at the tents, at the soldiers moving between them, exhausted, wired, running on fumes. So what do you want me to do? Keep them alive and watch your back? He walked away, boots crunching over gravel. Elena stood there for a long moment, then she went back inside. The next 3 hours were a blur. More casualties rolled in. Not from the ambush, those were already evacuated. These were from the cleanup. A soldier who'd stepped on an IED during the sweep. Another who'd taken shrapnel from a secondary explosion. A civilian contractor with a compound fracture after a vehicle rollover. Elena worked through them all, stitched, stabilized, triaged. Her hands moved without thought, muscle memory taking over. She'd done this so many times that it felt like breathing. By the time the sun started to rise, she was covered in blood that wasn't hers. A medic handed her a bottle of water. She drank half of it, poured the rest over her hands, watched the blood swirl pink in the dirt. You're good at this, the medic said. His name was Parker. Early 20s, baby-faced, the kind of kid who probably enlisted because he wanted to help people. I've had practice. How long were you deployed? Long enough? He nodded, didn't push. You going back to the hospital after this? Elena looked at the horizon. The sky was turning orange, bleeding into pink. I don't know. They'd be lucky to have you. She didn't answer, because she wasn't sure that was true. Back at Redwood Mercy, the day shift was just starting. Marissa walked into the break room, exhausted, still wearing yesterday's scrubs. She'd stayed all night, trying to find information on Elena. Nothing. Every search came up empty, every database locked. Hale was already there, sitting at the table with a file folder open in front of him. He looked like he hadn't slept either. Find anything? Marissa asked. He shook his head. Her employment file is a ghost, no previous work history, no references, just a license number and a start date. How is that possible? It's not, unless someone made it possible. Marissa sat down across from him. You think she's in witness protection or something? I think she's more than a nurse. What does that mean? Hale closed the folder. It means we need to figure out who Elena Voss really is. Marissa's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned. There's a news alert. Military incident 20 miles north. Multiple casualties. Hale looked up. When? Last night, around the time they took Elena. They stared at each other. You don't think... I don't know what to think. Hale stood. But I'm going to find out. He left the break room. Marissa watched him go, then pulled up the news article on her phone. Military convoy ambushed, casualties evacuated, no names released. But there was a photo, blurry, taken from a distance. Soldiers, vehicles, and in the background, just visible, a figure in scrubs. Marissa zoomed in. The resolution was terrible, but she could make out enough. Dark hair, slight build. Elena. By midday, Elena was on a helicopter heading back to Millbrook City. The patients had been stabilized and transferred. The field hospital was being dismantled. General Marks had thanked her, shaken her hand, and told her she'd be debriefed within 48 hours. She'd nodded, said nothing, and climbed into the bird. Now she sat in the back, staring out the window at the landscape sliding past below. Trees, roads, towns that looked like toys from up here. She was tired, bone-deep tired, the kind that didn't go away with sleep. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. A text from an unknown number. "We know what you did. Impressive. But you can't hide anymore." Elena stared at the screen. Then she deleted the message and put the phone away. The helicopter landed on the hospital roof. Elena climbed out, kit in hand, and walked toward the stairwell. She expected the roof to be empty. It wasn't. Dr. Hale was waiting. He stood near the door, arms crossed, jaw tight. When he saw her, something flickered across his face. Surprise, anger, maybe relief. She couldn't tell. "You've been gone for 14 hours, he said. "I was busy." "Doing what?" Elena walked past him toward the door. "My job." He grabbed her arm, not hard, just enough to stop her. "Your job is here, in this hospital, not wherever the hell you just were." She looked at his hand on her arm, then at his face. "Let go." He did. "I saved 2 lives last night," Elena said quietly. "Maybe more. So whatever you think I did wrong, I didn't." "I don't think you did anything wrong. I think you lied." "I never lied." "You didn't tell the truth?" Elena's eyes hardened. "Would it have mattered? Would you have listened? Would anyone?" Hale didn't answer. "That's what I thought." She opened the door to the stairwell. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a shift to finish." She descended the stairs before he could respond. Hale stood alone on the roof, wind whipping his coat. He pulled out his phone, dialed a number he shouldn't have. It rang 3 times, then a voice answered. "Marks." "General, this is Dr. Marcus Hale from Redwood Mercy Hospital. We need to talk about Elena Voss." There was a long pause. "How did you get this number?" "That doesn't matter. What matters is that one of my nurses was taken by military personnel last night, and I want to know why." "That's classified. She works for me. I have a right to know." "No, doctor, you don't." Marks's voice was cold. "Elena Voss is a national asset. What she does, where she goes, who she helps, that's above your clearance level. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to forget she was ever gone. You're going to let her work, and you're going to keep your mouth shut. Understood? And if I don't, then you'll find out what happens when you interfere with military operations." The line went dead. Hale stood there, phone still pressed to his ear. Then he lowered it slowly and stared at the skyline. Elena Voss wasn't just a nurse. She was something else entirely, and he'd been too blind to see it. Elena made it to the locker room before the exhaustion hit. She sat on the bench, head in her hands, trying to breathe through the weight pressing on her chest. She'd left the military to escape this. The adrenaline, the blood, the impossible choices. And now it was back, pulling her under like an undertow. The door opened. Marissa stepped inside. "You okay?" Elena looked up. "I'm fine." You don't look fine." "I said I'm fine." Marissa sat down beside her. "I saw the news, the convoy, the casualties. You were there, weren't you?" Elena didn't answer. "You saved them." "It's what I do." "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "Because it doesn't matter." Marissa shook her head. "It does matter. You're not just some random nurse. I don't even know what you are." Elena stood. "I'm someone who wants to be left alone." She walked out before Marissa could say anything else. The rest of the day passed in a haze. Elena moved through her rounds on autopilot, checked vitals, administered meds, updated charts. Nobody asked where she'd been. Nobody looked at her twice. Except Hale. Every time she turned around, he was there, watching, waiting, like he was trying to solve a puzzle he didn't have all the pieces to. By evening, she couldn't take it anymore. She cornered him in the hallway outside the supply closet. "What do you want?" He blinked. "Excuse me? You've been following me all day, so either ask me what you want to ask or stop." Hale glanced around. The hallway was empty. He lowered his voice. "Who are you?" "You know who I am." "No, I know your name. I know you're a nurse, but I don't know who you really are." Elena crossed her arms. "Does it matter?" "It does if it affects my hospital." "Your hospital?" "Yes." She laughed, short and bitter. "You really think this place belongs to you? You think because you have a title and a white coat that you're in charge?" "I think I have a responsibility to my patients and to my staff. Then trust them to do their jobs. Even when they disappear in the middle of the night?" Elena stepped closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his eyes, the tension in his jaw. Especially then. They stood there inches apart, neither one backing down. Then Elena's pager went off. She glanced at it. Code blue. 3rd floor. She ran. Hale followed. By the time they reached the room, the crash cart was already there. A resident was doing chest compressions on an elderly man. Another was bagging him. The monitor showed a flat line. Elena didn't ask permission. She moved to the head of the bed, checked the airway. Obstructed. She grabbed a laryngoscope, intubated him in one smooth motion, and started ventilating. "How long has he been down?" 3 minutes. "Any shockable rhythm?" "No." "A systole." Elena looked at Hale. "Epi." He grabbed the syringe, pushed it into the IV line. They worked in tandem, compressions, ventilations, drugs. The rhythm on the monitor stayed flat. 4 minutes. 5. "Come on," Elena muttered. "Come on." 6 minutes. Then, a blip. Weak, but there. "I've got a rhythm." The resident stopped compressions. They all watched the monitor. The blips continued. Irregular, but present. Pulse check. Weak, but there. The man gasped. His eyes fluttered open. Elena leaned over him. "Sir, you're in the hospital. You're okay. Just breathe." He nodded, confused, terrified, alive. Elena stepped back. Her hands were shaking again. She shoved them in her pockets so no one would see. Hale was staring at her. Not with anger this time, something else. "You just did my job," Elena finished. "Now, if you'll excuse me." She left the room before he could say anything else. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall, closed her eyes, and tried to remember why she'd ever thought she could leave this behind. That night, Elena sat alone in her apartment. It was small, bare. A bed, a table, a chair. No pictures on the walls, no personal items. Nothing that couldn't be packed in 5 minutes if she had to run. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She answered. "Who is this?" "Someone who wants to talk." The voice was male, unfamiliar, cold. "I'm not interested." "You should be, because we know who you are, Elena Voss. Or should I say, Senior Combat Medic Voss. 43 confirmed saves in hostile territory, 3 commendations, 2 classified operations, and now hiding in a hospital, pretending to be nobody." Elena's blood went cold. "What do you want?" "I want you to know that you're being watched, that everything you do, every life you save, every move you make, we see it. And when the time comes, we'll use it." "Use it for what?" "You'll find out." The line went dead. Elena sat in the dark, phone still pressed to her ear, and realized that disappearing had never been an option. Someone had been waiting for her to surface, and now they had her. Elena didn't sleep that night. She sat at her kitchen table, phone face down beside her, pistol within reach. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of pipes in the walls. Every sound made her nerves tighten. Every shadow felt like movement. By the time dawn crept through the blinds, she'd made a decision. She couldn't run. Running meant they won. Running meant everyone she'd saved, Browning, Ortiz, the man with the obstructed airway. All of it would have been for nothing. So she'd do what she'd always done. Stay, fight, keep people alive until someone made her stop. She showered, dressed, and drove to the hospital. The morning shift was chaos. A 3-car pileup on the interstate, a kitchen fire that had sent 4 people to the ER with smoke inhalation, a heart attack in the waiting room. Elena moved through it all like a blade through water, precise, necessary, unseen until the moment she mattered. Hale found her in the med supply room at noon. She was restocking trauma kits, checking inventory, making sure everything was exactly where it needed to be. "We need to talk." Elena didn't look up. "No, we don't. Someone called the hospital this morning, asked about you, specifically." That got her attention. She turned. "What did they want?" "To confirm you worked here, wanted your shift schedule." "What did you tell them?" "Nothing. I had the call traced. Burner phone. Untraceable." He stepped closer. "Elena, what's going on?" She set down the trauma kit. "You really want to know?" "Yes." "Then go back to your office. Forget you ever asked. Because if you know, you're involved, and you don't want to be involved." "Too late." She studied his face, saw the determination there, the stubborn refusal to back down. It reminded her of soldiers she'd known, the ones who thought bravery meant charging forward when they should have retreated. "Fine. Someone knows who I am, what I was, and they're watching. Why?" "I don't know yet, but they will make a move. And when they do, people will get hurt." "Then we call the police." Elena almost laughed. "The police can't help with this. The military is already aware, and if they haven't acted, it means they're either compromised or waiting to see what happens." Hale's jaw tightened. "So what do we do?" "We?" Elena shook her head. "There is no we. You stay out of it. I handle it. Like hell. This isn't your fight. It is now." He pulled out his phone, showed her the screen, an email from hospital administration. "They want a full review of your employment file, background check, the works. Someone's putting pressure on them." Elena read the email. Her expression didn't change, but inside she felt the walls closing in. "When?" "End of the week." "That gives me 4 days. To do what?" "Figure out who's coming for me. And why." Before Hale could respond, his pager went off. He glanced at it, swore under his breath. "Mass casualty incident. Bus rollover on Highway 12. ETA 5 minutes. Elena was already moving. The ER transformed. Gurneys lined up. Trauma bays prepped. Staff moving with controlled urgency. Elena took her position near the center, hands ready, mind clear. This was the part she understood. The part that made sense. The first patient came through. Teenage girl, unconscious, head laceration. Elena assessed her in seconds. GCS score of 10. Possible concussion. She barked orders to a resident, moved to the next gurney. Elderly man, chest pain. Suspected rib fractures. She ordered an X-ray, moved on. Middle-aged woman, abdominal pain, distended belly, possible internal bleeding. Elena pressed gently on the abdomen. The woman screamed. "Get her to imaging. Now. I think she's bleeding into her peritoneum." The gurney rolled away. More patients flooded in, a bus full of 40 people, and half of them needed immediate care. Elena moved between them, triaging, stabilizing, deciding who could wait and who would die if they did. Hale worked beside her. She had to admit, he was good under pressure, didn't freeze, didn't hesitate. Made calls fast and stuck with them. A child came in, maybe 7 years old, pale, unresponsive. His mother was screaming, trying to climb onto the gurney with him. Elena caught her. "Ma'am, I need you to step back so we can help him. He's not breathing. Please." Elena looked at the boy. His chest wasn't moving, lips blue. She felt for a pulse, nothing. "Get the crash cart." She started compressions. Small, careful pushes on his fragile chest, counting in her head. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Repeat. A resident brought the defibrillator. Elena checked the rhythm. Ventricular fibrillation, shockable. Clear. The boy's body jerked. The monitor beeped. Still V-fib. Again, clear. Another shock. This time the rhythm changed. Sinus tachycardia. Fast, but organized. Pulse check. There. The boy gasped, coughed, started crying. Beautiful, horrible sound. Elena stepped back, let the resident take over. Her hands were shaking again. She clenched them into fists, breathed through her nose. The mother was sobbing. "Thank you, thank you." Elena didn't respond, just moved to the next patient. 2 hours later, the ER finally calmed. 38 patients triaged, 4 sent to surgery, 2 admitted to ICU, 1 transferred to a pediatric specialty center, and 1, an elderly man whose injuries were too severe, died despite everything they did. Elena stood in the hallway, staring at nothing. The man's face was already fading from her memory. She'd learned not to hold on to them. If she did, she'd never sleep. Marissa appeared beside her. "You okay?" "I'm fine." "You saved that kid." "We all did." "No, you did. I saw it. If you hadn't started compressions when you did, someone else would have." Marissa shook her head. "Stop doing that." "Doing what?" "Acting like you're not important, like what you do doesn't matter." Elena looked at her. "It doesn't. Not in the way you think." "Then what way does it matter?" "It keeps people alive. That's all." Marissa opened her mouth to argue, but Elena's phone buzzed. She pulled it out. Another text. Same unknown number. "Impressive work today. But you can't save everyone. Tomorrow, you'll see." Elena's blood went cold. "What is it?" Marissa asked. Elena deleted the text, pocketed the phone. "Nothing." But it wasn't nothing. It was a promise. That night, Elena didn't go home. She stayed at the hospital, volunteering for the overnight shift. If something was coming, she'd be ready. She spent the hours walking the floors, checking on patients, making sure everything was in order. At 2 a.m., she found herself in the ICU, standing outside the room where Sergeant Browning was recovering. She hadn't seen him since the field hospital, hadn't checked if he'd made it through surgery. She pushed the door open quietly. He was asleep. IV lines running into his arm, monitor beeping steadily. His leg was bandaged, elevated. The surgery had worked. He'd keep the leg. His eyes opened. He blinked, focused on her. "I know you." Elena stepped closer. "I'm Elena. I was the medic who saved my life." His voice was rough, dry. "Yeah, I remember. Kind of. How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck, but alive." He shifted, winced. "They told me you're the reason I still have my leg." "The surgeons are the reason." "No, you stopped the bleeding. They said another 2 minutes and I'd have bled out." Elena didn't respond. "Why'd you leave the service?" Browning asked. "That's a long story." "I've got time." Elena pulled up a chair, sat. "I didn't leave. I finished my contract, decided not to re-up." "Why?" "Because I was tired." "Of what?" "Watching people die." Browning nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that." They sat in silence for a moment. Then he spoke again. "You ever regret it, leaving?" Elena thought about that, about the field hospital, about the blood and the chaos and the impossible choices, about the quiet halls of Redwood Mercy, where death still came, but at least it came slower. "Sometimes." "You miss it?" "No, but you're good at it." "That's not a reason to keep doing something." Browning smiled just a little. "Maybe it should be." Elena stood. "Get some rest, Sergeant." "You too." She left the room, and the weight on her chest felt a little heavier. The next morning came too fast. Elena was in the break room drinking coffee when Hale found her. "We have a problem." "What now?" "There's been a security breach. Someone accessed the hospital's patient database last night, pulled files." Elena set down her cup. "Which files?" "Yours, and everyone you've treated in the last 3 months." Her stomach dropped. "They have names, addresses." "Yes." "Did you report it?" "It is looking into it, but whoever did this knew what they were doing. No trace." Elena stood. "We need to warn them. Everyone on that list. If someone's targeting me, they'll use them to get to me." "Already done. We've contacted everyone we could reach. But some of the addresses were outdated. Some of the phone numbers disconnected." "How many couldn't you reach?" Hale hesitated. 12. Elena grabbed her coat. Then we find them ourselves. You can't just watch me. She was halfway to the door when the fire alarm went off. The sound was deafening. Strobe lights flashed. People started moving toward the exits, calm at first, then faster as smoke began filtering through the vents. Elena stopped, looked at Hale. This isn't a drill. They ran toward the source. The smoke was thickest near the east wing. 4th floor. Elena took the stairs 2 at a time, Hale right behind her. The hallway was filled with smoke. Patients were being evacuated, staff guiding them toward the stairwells. Elena saw flames licking out from under a storage room door. A nurse spotted them. We're evacuating this floor. Everyone out. Are all the patients accounted for? Elena asked. I think so. You think or you know? The nurse's face went pale. I don't know. Elena didn't wait. She grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall, kicked open the nearest patient room. Empty. Next room. Empty. Next, an elderly woman in a wheelchair, alone, trying to wheel herself toward the door. She was coughing, eyes streaming. Elena grabbed the wheelchair, pushed her toward the stairwell. Go, now. The woman nodded, too scared to speak. Elena went back, checked the next room. Empty. Next, a man on oxygen, struggling to disconnect his tank. Leave it. I've got you. She helped him up, guided him to the stairs, went back. The smoke was thicker now. Her eyes burned. Her lungs screamed for clean air. She pulled her shirt over her mouth, kept moving. Last room, door closed. She pushed it open. A patient was inside, young man, post-surgery, hooked to monitors that were still beeping. He was unconscious. Elena disconnected the monitors, grabbed the IV pole, started wheeling the bed toward the door. It was heavy. Too heavy. The wheels caught on something. She swore, pushed harder. Hale appeared beside her. I've got the other side. Together they maneuvered the bed into the hallway. The fire was spreading. Flames crawled up the walls, consuming everything. They reached the stairwell, started down. The bed barely fit. They had to angle it, lift it, drag it down one step at a time. By the time they reached the ground floor, Elena's arms were shaking. Her lungs felt like sandpaper. Firefighters met them at the entrance, took over the patient. Elena and Hale stumbled outside, gulping fresh air. The hospital was being evacuated, hundreds of people streaming out the exits. Ambulances lined up to transfer critical patients. Fire trucks pumped water into the building. Elena bent over, hands on her knees, coughing. Hale stood beside her, doing the same. You okay? Yeah. You? Yeah. A firefighter approached. Anyone else inside? No, Elena said. We got everyone. You sure? I'm sure. The firefighter nodded, ran back toward the building. Elena straightened, looked at the smoke pouring from the 4th floor. Then she looked at Hale. This wasn't an accident. How do you know? Because storage rooms don't spontaneously combust. Someone set this. Hale's face went pale. The text, tomorrow you'll see. They wanted chaos, wanted me distracted. Why? Elena didn't answer. Because she didn't know yet. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. Another text. Check your apartment. Her heart stopped. She ran. Her apartment was 15 minutes from the hospital. Elena made it an 8, ignoring every red light, every speed limit. Her hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel, her mind racing through possibilities, none of them good. She parked crooked, ran up the stairs to the 3rd floor. Her door was closed. Locked. No sign of forced entry. She pulled out her key, unlocked it slowly, pushed the door open. The apartment looked untouched, everything exactly where she'd left it. Bed made, table clean, kitchen spotless. But something was wrong. She could feel it. She stepped inside, hand moving to the small of her back where she kept her pistol. Swept the room. Nothing. Checked the bedroom. Nothing. Bathroom. Nothing. Then she saw it. On the kitchen table. A manila folder. It hadn't been there before. Elena approached slowly, opened it. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them. Surveillance photos. Her leaving the hospital, her at the field hospital, her in the grocery store, her in her car. Someone had been following her for weeks, maybe months, and underneath the photos, a single sheet of paper. You have something we need. Cooperate and no one gets hurt. Refuse and everyone you've saved will die. Starting with Browning. Elena's hands shook. She read it again, then a third time. Her phone rang. She answered. Did you get my message? The same cold voice from before. What do you want? I told you. Cooperation. With what? You have access to things we need. Medical records, patient files, military personnel information. You're going to give it to us. I'm not giving you anything. Then Sergeant Browning dies. Tonight. In his hospital bed. And we'll make it look natural. A complication. An infection. No one will question it. Elena's jaw clenched. You touch him, and I will find you. The voice laughed. You won't, because you don't know who we are. But we know you. We know everything about you, and we will take everything you care about until you give us what we want. I don't care about anything. Yes, you do. You care about keeping people alive. It's who you are, and that's exactly what we're going to use against you. The line went dead. Elena stood in her apartment, staring at the photos scattered across the table. She'd spent 3 months trying to disappear, trying to be invisible. And the whole time, someone had been watching, waiting. She picked up her phone, dialed a number she'd sworn she'd never use again. General Marks answered on the second ring. Voss, I need help. What's wrong? Someone's targeting me. They want information, and they're threatening to kill Browning if I don't cooperate. Marks was silent for a long moment. Then, where are you? My apartment. Stay there. I'm sending a team. How fast? 20 minutes. Make it 10. She hung up, grabbed her go bag from under the bed, checked her pistol, loaded. One in the chamber. Then she heard it. A sound from the hallway. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Elena moved to the door, looked through the peephole. 2 men in dark clothes. No uniforms. No insignias. One of them pulled something from his jacket. A suppressed pistol. Elena stepped back. Her mind went cold, clinical. 2 hostiles, 1 exit, no cover, bad odds. The door handle turned, locked. The man pulled out a key. They had a key. Elena crossed the apartment in 3 steps, grabbed her bag, moved to the window. 3rd floor, fire escape below. She unlocked the window, pushed it open, climbed out. Behind her, the apartment door opened. She dropped to the fire escape, started down. Metal clanged under her feet, loud, too loud. A voice shouted from above, "She's running!" Elena hit the alley, sprinted toward the street. Behind her, footsteps on the fire escape. Fast, gaining. She rounded the corner, nearly collided with a car. Horns blared. She kept running. A shot cracked behind her. Suppressed, but she heard it. The bullet sparked off a brick wall to her left. She ducked into a side street, kept moving. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. She hadn't run like this in years. Another shot, this one closer. Elena dove behind a dumpster, pulled out her pistol, waited. Footsteps approaching. Slow now. Cautious. She steadied her breathing, counted heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. A shadow appeared at the edge of the dumpster. Elena stepped out, pistol raised. The man's eyes went wide. He tried to bring his weapon up. Elena fired first. Center mass. The man dropped. She didn't wait. Ran. The second man was behind her, shouting into a radio. More would come. This was just the beginning. Elena ran until her legs gave out, until she found herself in an industrial area she didn't recognize. She collapsed behind a warehouse, gasping, shaking. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marks. "Where are you?" "Team is at your apartment." "You're not there." She typed back with trembling fingers. "They came for me. I'm alive. But they're not stopping." The response came immediately. "Send me your location. We're coming." Elena looked around, didn't recognize the street, didn't know where she was, but she sent her GPS coordinates anyway. Then she waited, pistol in her lap, blood on her hands, and realized that the war she thought she'd left behind had just followed her home. The headlights cut through the darkness first, then the sound of engines. 3 black SUVs skidded to a stop in front of the warehouse, doors flying open before the vehicles had fully stopped. Soldiers poured out, weapons raised, scanning for threats. General Marks was the last to emerge. He spotted Elena crouched behind a rusted loading dock, pistol still in her hand, and crossed the distance in long strides. "You hurt?" Elena shook her head. "I'm fine." "The man you shot?" "Dead." Marks crouched beside her, pulled out a tactical light, checked her over anyway. No visible wounds, just dirt and sweat and the kind of exhaustion that came from running for your life. He stood, offered his hand. She took it. "We need to move. Now. They'll have more coming." Elena let him pull her to her feet, but she didn't holster her weapon. "Browning." They threatened him specifically. "He's still in the hospital." "Already handled. We pulled him 20 minutes ago. He's in a secure facility." "What about the others? The patients on that list?" "Working on it, but right now you're the priority." "I'm not." "You are." Marks's voice was hard. "Because whoever's doing this isn't just after information. They're after you. And until we know why, you're coming with us." Elena wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she could handle herself. But she'd just killed a man in an alley and nearly died doing it. So maybe he had a point. She climbed into the SUV. They drove in silence, weaving through back streets, avoiding main roads. Elena watched the city pass by through tinted windows. Familiar buildings. Familiar streets. Everything looked the same, but it felt different now. Hostile. Like the whole place had turned against her overnight. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. "Safe house. Military installation on the edge of the city. Off the books." "How far off?" "Far enough that no one will find you unless I want them to." Elena leaned back against the seat. Her hands were still shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs, willing them to stop. Marks noticed but didn't comment. "You did good back there," he said. "I killed someone." "Someone who was trying to kill you." "That doesn't make it easier." "It's not supposed to." They drove for another 15 minutes before pulling up to an unmarked building behind a chain-link fence. Guard posts at every corner. Soldiers who looked like they'd been awake for 3 days straight and wouldn't hesitate to shoot anything that moved wrong. Marks led Elena inside through a corridor that smelled like concrete and gun oil into a small room with a table, 2 chairs, and a single overhead light that hummed like it was about to die. "Sit. I'll get you water." Elena sat. The chair was metal, cold against her back through her shirt. She set her pistol on the table, realized her hands were still dirty, still had traces of blood on them from where she'd checked the pulse of the man she'd shot. She rubbed them on her jeans. It didn't help. Marks returned with a bottle of water and a tablet. He set both in front of her. "Drink first, then we talk." Elena drank. The water was cold, tasteless, but it helped clear her head. She finished half the bottle before she realized how thirsty she was. Marks opened the tablet, pulled up files, photos, documents, things that looked classified. "We ran the man you shot. His prints came back to a private military contractor, Black Ridge Solutions. Heard of them?" Elena shook her head. "They're hired muscle, high-end, mostly work overseas, corporate security, asset protection, the occasional black bag job when governments need something done without fingerprints. They don't come cheap, and they don't take jobs from nobodies. So someone with money wants me dead. Or wants leverage over you. The threat against Browning wasn't random. They did their homework, knew exactly which button to push." Mark swiped through more files. "We pulled records. Blackridge has been operating in the region for 6 weeks. Shell companies, fake credentials, the whole setup. Someone planned this." Elena set down the water bottle. "What do they want?" "That's what we're going to find out." Marks pulled up another image. Surveillance photo. Grainy, taken from a distance, but clear enough. The hospital fire wasn't an accident. Accelerant found in 3 locations. Professional job. Time to create maximum chaos. And the data breach, whoever accessed those files knew exactly what they were looking for. They had admin credentials. Inside job? Looks like it. We're tracing the access point now, but whoever did this covered their tracks well. Used VPNs, proxy servers, the works. This isn't some amateur with a grudge. This is organized. Elena's mind was racing. Inside job. Someone at the hospital. Someone who had access to everything. Patient files, shift schedules, security protocols. Someone who could walk around without raising suspicion. "Hale," she said suddenly. Marks looked up. "The doctor?" He's been asking questions, digging into my background. What if he's not the one asking? What if someone's using him? What if he's been feeding them information? Elena nodded slowly. He called you. After I got back from the field hospital, he wanted information about me. I told him to back off. But if someone was listening, if they had access to his communications, then they know we're connected, and they know you're an asset. Marks closed the tablet, set it aside. His expression was grim. Voss, I need you to think. Is there anything from your deployments that someone might want? Classified intel? Access codes? Operational details? Elena thought back. 3 tours. Dozens of missions. Most of them blurred together now. The faces, the wounds, the impossible choices made in seconds. But there was one operation that stood out, one that had bothered her ever since. Kabul, 2 years ago. We extracted a defector, high-value target. He had intel on weapons smuggling routes, buyer networks, people at the top of the chain. I was the medic on the extraction team. Did you have access to the intel? No, but I treated him, kept him alive long enough to talk. He was in bad shape, gunshot wounds, internal bleeding. We worked on him for 3 hours in the back of a transport while taking fire. He was conscious part of the time, talking, rambling. What did he say? Names, places. Most of it didn't make sense to me, but there was one name he kept repeating, Kress. David Kress. He said Kress was the middleman, the one who made the deals happen. Marks went very still. David Kress? You know him? CEO of Black Ridge Solutions. Elena's stomach dropped. The same company that sent the contractors after me? Yes. Marks pulled the tablet back, started typing rapidly. If Kress was involved in weapon smuggling and the defector could prove it, then I'm a loose end, someone who was there, who heard things. Even if you don't remember them, Marks looked up. Where's the defector now? Witness protection, last I heard. Marks's expression darkened. He made a call, spoke in low, clipped tones. Elena watched his face change as he listened to whoever was on the other end. When he hung up, he looked like he'd aged 5 years. He's dead. 3 days ago, car accident in Omaha. Single vehicle collision. No witnesses. Elena's hands tightened into fists. That's not a coincidence. No, it's not. Mark sat down across from her. Someone's cleaning house, tying up loose ends, and you're one of them. Because I kept him alive. Because you were there. You saw things, heard things. Even if you don't think you remember, they can't take that risk. Elena pressed her palms against the table. The metal was cold, solid, real. So what now? Now we go on offense. We find out who else is involved, and we put them down before they can come after anyone else. Marks pulled up a photo on the tablet. A man in his 50s, gray hair, expensive suit, the kind of smile that belonged on a shark. This is David Kress. If his people are involved, he knows why. We bring him in. Make him talk. You think he'll cooperate? I think he'll cooperate, or he'll face charges for conspiracy, attempted murder, arms trafficking, and about a dozen other felonies that'll put him away for the rest of his life. Mark stood. But first, we need to secure the hospital, make sure no one else is in danger. Elena stood too. I'm coming with you. No, you're staying here where it's safe. The hell I am. Voss, they came after me. They burned my hospital. They threatened people I saved. They killed a man who was under my protection. Elena's voice was low, hard. I'm not sitting in a safe house while you clean up the mess. I'm part of this whether you like it or not. Mark stared at her. She stared back, neither one backing down. Finally, he sighed. You're as stubborn as I remember. That's why you called me. Fine. But you follow my orders. No heroics, no going off on your own. And if I tell you to get down, you get down. Understood? Understood. They left the safe house 20 minutes later, heading back toward Redwood Mercy in a convoy of 3 vehicles. Elena sat in the back of the lead SUV, watching the city lights blur past. Beside her, a young soldier checked his rifle, calm and methodical. He couldn't have been more than 23. First time back in the field? He asked. Elena glanced at him. Something like it. Mark says you're good, says you saved half a platoon in Afghanistan, kept them alive under fire for 6 hours until evac could get there. I did my job. Must have been some job. Elena didn't respond, because it hadn't felt like a job. It had felt like drowning, like trying to hold back the tide with her bare hands while the water kept rising and people kept bleeding out faster than she could stitch them closed. The hospital was lit up like a carnival when they arrived. Fire trucks still lined the street, their lights painting everything red and blue. Police barriers kept civilians back. The fourth floor was charred, windows blown out, smoke still drifting into the night sky like a funeral shroud. Marks led the team inside through a side entrance, bypassing the chaos at the front. They moved through the corridors like a unit, precise, coordinated, barely making a sound. Elena followed, keeping her head down, trying not to draw attention. But people noticed anyway. Staff turning to stare, whispers following in their wake. They reached the administrative wing. Marks gestured to 2 soldiers, sent them to secure the exits. Then he turned to Elena. Where would Hale be? His office, 3rd floor. Show me. They took the stairs. The 3rd floor was quieter, less affected by the fire. Elena led them down a corridor she'd walked 100 times, past break rooms and conference rooms and offices with names on the doors. People she'd worked with, people who'd ignored her, people who'd treated her like she was invisible. They reached a door with a nameplate. Dr. Marcus Hale. Marks knocked. No answer. He tried the handle. Locked. One of the soldiers pulled out a lockpick set, worked the lock in seconds. The door swung open. Hale's office was a disaster. Papers scattered everywhere. Filing cabinets pulled open, contents spilling onto the floor. Computer screen cracked. Chair overturned. Someone had torn the place apart. Mark stepped inside, scanned the room. Looks like someone beat us here. Elena moved to the desk, started sorting through papers. Medical journals, patient charts, billing documents. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then she saw it. A folder, half hidden under a pile of forms. She pulled it out, opened it. Inside were surveillance photos. The same ones that had been in her apartment. Dozens of them. Her leaving the hospital, her at the grocery store, her sitting alone in her car. And underneath them, a handwritten note on hospital letterhead. Payment on delivery. No excuses. Final warning. Marks. He crossed the room in 2 strides, looked at the note. His expression went cold. Hale's involved. Or someone setting him up to take the fall. Either way, we need to find him. Now. They searched the rest of the office, found more files tucked behind medical textbooks, more photos, financial records showing wire transfers to offshore accounts. And in the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet, wrapped in a plastic bag, a burner phone. Marks powered it on. One message, sent 3 hours ago, subject acquired, extraction failed. She's armed and moving, adjust plan, proceed to fallback. Elena's jaw tightened. They were coordinating through him, or through his phone without him knowing. Marks pocketed the device. We need to find him. If he's working with them, he's our link to Cress. If he's not, he's the next target. They left the office, headed back toward the ER. The hospital was still in chaos. Staff running between patients, trying to manage the overflow from the fire evacuation. Temporary beds set up in hallways. Monitors beeping everywhere. The smell of smoke still hanging in the air. Elena spotted Marissa near the nurse's station, looking exhausted and scared. Dark circles under her eyes. Scrubs stained with something that might have been blood, or coffee, or both. She approached. Marissa. Marissa spun around. Elena. Oh my God, where have you been? Everyone's saying you disappeared, that something happened, that you... She stopped, took in Elena's appearance. The dirt, the exhaustion, the soldiers standing behind her. What's going on? Where's Hale? I don't know. He disappeared after the fire started. No one's seen him since. Why? What's happening? Did he say anything? Mention where he was going? Marissa shook her head, then hesitated. Wait. He got a phone call, right before he left. I saw him in the hallway. He looked scared, angry, I don't know. Then he just took off. Do you know who called? No, but there was a man here earlier looking for him. Mark stepped forward. What did this man look like? Older, gray hair, expensive suit, the kind that probably costs more than I make in a month. He didn't look like a patient. Too polished. He asked for Hale specifically, said it was urgent. What time was this? Maybe an hour before the fire started. Marks pulled out the tablet, showed her a photo. This him? Marissa leaned closer, squinted at the screen, then her eyes went wide. Yes, that's him. Who is he? Someone very dangerous. Marks turned to his team. We need to find Hale, now. He's either working with Cress or he's already dead. They split up. Marks took half the team to search the upper floors. Administrative offices, doctors' lounges, places where staff went to hide when things got bad. Elena took the rest to search the basement. Storage rooms, maintenance areas, the morgue, all the places people forgot existed until they needed something. The basement was dark, lit only by emergency lights that cast long shadows against concrete walls. Water dripped somewhere in the distance. Pipes groaned overhead. Elena moved carefully, checking each room. Storage closets full of supplies. Equipment rooms with machines that hummed and beeped. All empty. Then she heard it. A sound. Muffled. Coming from the far end of the corridor where the light barely reached. She signaled to the soldiers behind her. They moved forward, weapons raised, steps silent. The sound came again. Closer now. A voice. Strained. Desperate. Elena reached a door marked maintenance, no unauthorized access. It was locked from the outside, heavy padlock hanging from the latch. One of the soldiers cut it with bolt cutters. The lock fell to the floor with a clang that echoed down the corridor. Elena pulled the door open. Inside, bound to a chair with duct tape around his wrists and ankles, tape over his mouth, was Dr. Marcus Hale. His face was bruised, blood dried under his nose, one eye swollen shut. He looked up when the door opened, and his good eye went wide with relief and terror. Elena crossed the room, pulled the tape off his mouth. He gasped, coughed, sucked in air like he'd been drowning. Elena, thank God they took me. I couldn't. Slow down. Who took you? I don't know. 2 men, maybe 3. They came to my office after the fire started, said I needed to come with them, that I was in danger. I tried to fight, but they... He stopped, looked at the soldiers filling the doorway. Who are they? Help. Who were the men who took you? I don't know, but they were asking about you, about what I knew, about what I told people. Elena cut the tape binding his wrists with a pocket knife one of the soldiers handed her. What did you tell them? Nothing. I swear, I didn't... He stopped, looked away. That's not true. I told them about the phone call, the one with the general, about how you disappeared that night, about the field hospital. What else? They had my phone, they were reading my messages, going through my files. They knew everything, patient lists, schedules, security codes. Elena grabbed his collar, pulled him forward. Did you give them access? No, I swear I don't know how they got it. His voice cracked. Someone's been contacting me for weeks, asking about you, offering money for information. I thought they were just... I don't know what I thought. You thought you'd get paid and nothing would happen. Hale's face crumpled. I didn't take the money. I was trying to figure out who they were. I was trying to protect the hospital. By selling me out? I didn't know what else to do. They said if I didn't cooperate, they'd... He stopped, swallowed hard. They said they'd hurt people, patients, staff. They knew everything about everyone. Elena let him go. He slumped forward, hands shaking. One of the soldiers stepped forward. Ma'am, we need to move. If they locked him down here, they might be coming back. Elena nodded. Get him upstairs, medical evaluation, then put him under guard. He doesn't talk to anyone until we figure out what he knows. They hauled Hale to his feet. He could barely walk, legs unsteady after however long he'd been tied up. 2 soldiers supported him, led him toward the stairs. Elena followed, mind racing. Hale had been used, manipulated, fed information and threats until he cracked. But he'd also made choices, bad ones, and people had suffered for it. Upstairs, Marks was waiting near the ER entrance. His expression told her everything before he said a word. We got a hit on Cress's location. He's at a private airfield 15 miles outside the city. Looks like he's trying to run. Elena's jaw set. Then let's not let him. The drive to the airfield took 20 minutes. Elena spent most of it staring out the window, watching the city give way to industrial zones and empty lots and finally open fields. The sun was starting to rise, painting the horizon in shades of orange and red that reminded her of explosions. The airfield was small, private, the kind of place where rich people kept their jets and paid good money to make sure no one asked questions. A single runway, a few hangars, chain-link fence topped with razor wire, guard shack at the entrance, but the guard was gone. Marks deployed his team in a perimeter, covering all exits and approaches. Elena stayed with him, moving toward the main hangar on foot. The building was massive, doors wide open, lights on inside. A jet sat on the tarmac just beyond the hangar, engines warming up, ground crew loading luggage into the cargo hold, pilots in the cockpit doing pre-flight checks, and standing near the stairs talking on a phone was David Kress. He saw them coming. For a split second, his expression faltered, surprise, then anger, then something that looked like resignation. Then he smiled, pocketed the phone, and raised his hands in a gesture that was almost mocking. "Gentlemen and lady, to what do I owe the pleasure of this early morning visit?" Marks didn't smile back. His voice was flat, professional. "David Kress, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, obstruction of justice, arms trafficking, and about a dozen other charges I'll read to you on the way to federal lockup." Kress laughed. Actually laughed. "On what evidence, General? Some wild accusations from a disgraced doctor? Circumstantial connections to contractors who happen to be in the area? Your contractors tried to kill one of my people. One of them is dead, the other's in custody and talking. And your phone records tie you directly to the hospital fire and data breach. I have lawyers who will eat those charges for breakfast. Then they can visit you in prison while you wait for trial." Kress's smile faded. His eyes went cold. "You're making a mistake. The only mistake was yours, thinking you could get away with it." Two soldiers moved forward. Kress didn't resist, just let them cuff his hands behind his back, his expression calculating, like he was already 3 steps ahead, planning his next move. Elena stepped forward. "Why me? What did I do that was worth burning down a hospital and killing people?" Kress looked at her. Really looked at her. Not like she was invisible. Not like she didn't matter. Like she was a problem he'd underestimated. "You don't even know, do you? You have no idea what you stumbled into. Enlighten me. The defector you saved in Kabul, Rashid Ansari. He wasn't just carrying intelligence about smuggling routes. He had proof, documents, recordings, evidence that people in very high places, government officials, military contractors, corporate executives, were making millions off weapons sales to terrorist networks. Proof that would have destroyed careers, ended companies, sent people to prison for life." Elena's blood went cold. "And you were one of them. I was a facilitator, a middleman. I made deals happen for people who didn't want their names anywhere near the transactions. Cash for weapons, weapons for influence. Everyone got what they wanted, and no one asked questions. Until Ansari talked. Until you kept him alive long enough to talk." Kress's voice was cold. "He should have died in that transport, should have bled out before you could get to him. But you saved him, stabilized him, gave him time to hand over everything he knew, and because of that, people started asking questions, investigations opened, accounts frozen, my entire network dismantled." "Good. Good." Kress smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You think this ends with me? I'm one piece. There are dozens of others, people who won't make the mistake of leaving loose ends. Is that a threat? It's a fact. You can arrest me, put me on trial, lock me away. But as long as you're alive, as long as there's a chance you remember something, a face, a name, a conversation, you're a liability, and liabilities get eliminated." Mark stepped between them. "Get him out of here." The soldiers dragged Kress toward one of the waiting vehicles. He didn't struggle, just kept that cold smile on his face, like he knew something they didn't. Elena watched him go and felt no satisfaction, no relief, just exhaustion, and the growing certainty that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. They returned to the hospital as the sun climbed higher, burning off the last of the night's shadows. The fire damage was being assessed, engineers checking structural integrity, insurance adjusters taking photos. The hospital would survive. It always did. Elena stood outside the ER entrance, watching staff come and go. Some of them nodded to her. Others stared. Word had spread. About the soldiers, about Cress, about what had really happened. Marissa found her there, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "They're saying you're some kind of hero, that you saved everyone." Elena didn't respond. "They're also saying you killed someone last night, that there was a shootout in the city. I did what I had to do." Marissa was quiet for a moment. "Are you coming back to work?" "I don't know." "You should. People need you." "People need a lot of things. Doesn't mean I'm the one who should give it to them." "Why not?" Elena looked at her. "Because I'm tired, Marissa. I'm tired of fighting, tired of watching people die, tired of being the one who has to fix everything." "Then what are you going to do?" "I don't know yet." Marissa nodded slowly. Then she said, "Hale's being removed, suspended pending investigation. They're doing a full review of his conduct, his files, everything." "Good. They want to talk to you too, about what happened, about him." "Let them." Marissa hesitated, like she wanted to say something else. Then she just squeezed Elena's shoulder and walked away. Elena stood alone, watching the sunrise paint the hospital walls gold. Inside, the hospital was returning to its rhythm. The overnight chaos had settled into exhausted routine. Elena walked through the halls one last time, checking on patients she'd treated, making sure everyone was stable. Browning had been returned to his room after the threat was neutralized. He was awake now, sitting up in bed, looking stronger than he had any right to be. "They told me what happened," he said when she walked in. "That you stopped them. It wasn't just me. But you were part of it. You kept fighting." Elena didn't know what to say to that. "Why'd you do it?" Browning asked. "Why risk everything to keep me safe?" "Because I told you I would." "That's it?" "That's everything." Browning studied her face. Then he nodded, like he understood something she didn't. "Thank you." Elena left before he could say anything else. She made it to the locker room, sat on the bench, and finally let herself breathe. Let herself feel the weight of the last 48 hours. The fear, the exhaustion, the impossible choices that had somehow turned out right. Her phone buzzed. She almost didn't check it, almost threw it across the room, but she looked anyway. A message from Marks. "Cress is talking. Names, dates, accounts. It's bigger than we thought. Congressional investigations opening. Multiple agencies involved. You did good, Voss." Elena stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back. "I just wanted to disappear." The response came quickly. "You can't. Not anymore. But maybe that's not such a bad thing. The world needs people like you." Elena set down the phone, closed her eyes. Maybe he was right. Maybe disappearing had never really been an option. Maybe some fights found you no matter how far you ran. The door to the locker room opened. Elena looked up, expecting Marissa. It was Hale. He looked terrible. Face bruised, eyes still swollen, moving like every step hurt. He wasn't supposed to be here, wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the hospital. "I'm not supposed to be here," he said, like he could read her mind. "Then leave." "I needed to say something first." Elena stood. "There's nothing you can say that'll fix this." "I know, but I need to say it anyway." He took a breath, winced. "I was wrong. About you. About everything. I thought you were hiding something dangerous, something that would put the hospital at risk, and I was right, but I didn't understand what you were hiding, or why, and because I didn't understand, I made everything worse. People almost died. I know. The hospital burned. I know. And you let it happen because you were too arrogant to ask the right questions." Hale's voice cracked. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was protecting people. I thought—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "I thought I was smarter than everyone else, that I deserved answers, that I could handle whatever I found. You thought rules didn't apply to you." "Yes." Elena stepped closer. "People like you are the reason people like me exist. Because you make messes and someone has to clean them up. You create chaos and walk away while other people bleed. I'm sorry. Your sorry doesn't bring back the people who got hurt, doesn't fix the damage, Doesn't make any of this right. I know. Then what do you want from me? Hale met her eyes. I want you to know that I see you now. What you are. What you've done. And I'm sorry I didn't see it before. Elena wanted to be angry, wanted to tell him to go to hell, but she was too tired. Get out, she said quietly, and don't come back. Hale stood there for a moment longer. Then he turned and left. Elena sat back down on the bench, alone again, the way she'd always been. Her phone buzzed one more time. She almost didn't look, almost threw it in her locker and walked away, but something made her check. Unknown number. Again. Her heart stopped. She opened the message. Cress wasn't the only one. You know that, don't you? There are others. People who won't make his mistakes. People who are smarter, more patient. And they're already watching you again. They're already planning. Sleep well, Elena, while you still can. The screen went dark. Elena stared at her reflection in the black glass, saw her own exhausted face staring back, and realized that the war wasn't over. It had barely started. Somewhere in the city, someone was watching, waiting, learning from Cress's failures, and when they moved, they wouldn't miss. Elena didn't delete the message this time. She screenshot it, forwarded it to Marks, then sat staring at her phone like it might explode. The locker room was silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant beeping of monitors from the hallway. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, cold. That scared her more than the trembling ever had. Her phone rang 30 seconds later. Did you just send me what I think you sent me? Marks's voice was tight. Yes. Where are you? Hospital, locker room. So stay there. I'm 10 minutes out. I'm not running. I'm not asking you to run. I'm asking you to stay alive long enough for me to figure out who sent that message. He paused. Voss, this is serious. If there are more players, there are always more players. Cress said it himself. He was just one piece. Then we find the rest and we dismantle them. How? They've been watching me for months. They know my routines, my patterns. They know how I think. Then we change how you think. Marks's voice hardened. 10 minutes. Don't move. The line went dead. Elena pocketed her phone, stood, and walked to the mirror above the sink. Her reflection stared back, exhausted, hollow-eyed, covered in grime she hadn't bothered to wash off. She looked like someone who'd been through a war, maybe because she had. She turned on the faucet, splashed cold water on her face. It didn't help. The door opened behind her. Elena's hand moved instinctively toward her waistband where her pistol should have been, but she'd left it in her locker. Stupid. Careless. But it was just Marissa. You okay? Elena turned off the water. Define okay. Marissa leaned against the doorframe. The kind where you're not about to do something dangerous and stupid. Too late. Elena, I'm fine, really. She grabbed a paper towel, dried her face. What do you need? There's someone here to see you, said it's urgent. Elena's blood went cold. Who? I don't know. Security brought him up. Military guy. Said General Marks sent him. Elena pushed past her, moved into the hallway. A soldier stood near the nurse's station, young, clean-cut, the kind of kid who probably joined because he believed in something bigger than himself. He straightened when he saw her. Ma'am, General Marks sent me to escort you to a secure location. He said 10 minutes. Plans changed. We need to move now. Elena studied his face. Something was off. His uniform was right. His bearing was right. But his eyes were wrong. Too focused. Too still. What's your unit? 75th Ranger Regiment, ma'am. What battalion? He hesitated, just a fraction of a second, but it was enough. Elena took a step back. You're not military. His hand moved toward his jacket. Elena didn't think. She grabbed the nearest thing, a metal bedpan from a supply cart, and swung it hard. It connected with his wrist. He grunted, stumbled back, and his hand came out of his jacket holding a pistol. Marissa screamed. Elena threw herself sideways as the shot rang out. The bullet punched through the wall behind where she'd been standing. Marissa hit the floor. Other staff scattered, running, shouting. The man aimed again. Elena was already moving. She grabbed the supply cart, shoved it toward him. He fired again. The bullet sparked off the cart's metal frame, and then the cart slammed into him. He went down. Elena was on him in a second, grabbed his wrist, twisted, felt something pop. He screamed. The pistol clattered to the floor. She kicked it away, drove her knee into his chest, heard the air rush out of him. "Who sent you?" He didn't answer, just glared at her with cold, professional hatred. She pressed harder. "Who sent you? You're already dead," he wheezed. "All of you. You just don't know it yet." Footsteps pounded down the hallway. Real soldiers this time. Marks's team. They grabbed the man, hauled him off Elena, slammed him face first into the floor. Marks appeared, weapon drawn, scanning for threats. When he saw Elena standing there, breathing hard but alive, something in his expression shifted. "You good?" "I'm fine." "That's twice in 2 days someone's tried to kill you." "I'm keeping count." He looked at the man on the floor, now zip-tied and cursing in a language Elena didn't recognize. "Get him to interrogation. I want to know who he's working for, who sent him, and what the plan was." 2 soldiers dragged the man away. Marks turned back to Elena. "We need to get you out of here. Now." "I'm not leaving." "Voss, they're escalating. That means they're desperate. That means we're close to something." She pointed at the man being hauled toward the exit. "He knew exactly where to find me, knew my schedule, knew I'd be in that locker room. Someone's feeding them real-time information." Marks's jaw tightened. "Then we have a leak." "Not we. You. Someone in your command, someone who knows where I am at all times." He went very still. "You're sure?" "How else would they know? The safe house, the convoy routes, the timing. Someone's been feeding them everything." Marks pulled out his phone, made a call. His voice was low, clipped, furious. When he hung up, he looked like he wanted to put his fist through a wall. "I'm locking down the operation. No one in or out without my personal authorization. And we're moving you again, somewhere only I know about." "That won't work." "Why not?" "Because they'll just wait, watch, learn, and then they'll strike when I'm vulnerable." Elena stepped closer. "I'm done running. I'm done hiding. If they want me, they can come get me, but this time, I'll be ready." "You want to use yourself as bait." "I want to end this." Mark stared at her. Then he shook his head. "You're insane." "Probably, but I'm also right." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "If we do this, we do it my way. Controlled environment, backup in place, exit strategies. Fine. And if it goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, then at least I went down fighting." Marks looked like he wanted to argue, but he just sighed. "You're the most stubborn person I've ever met. You keep saying that like it's a bad thing." They spent the next 6 hours planning. Marks pulled in his best people, the ones he'd known for years, the ones he trusted with his life. They mapped out the hospital, identified choke points, placed surveillance, set traps. Elena would stay visible, keep her routine, make herself an easy target. And when whoever was behind this made their move, they'd be ready. It was a terrible plan, but it was the only one they had. By nightfall, everything was in place. Snipers on rooftops, plainclothes agents in the corridors, cameras monitoring every entrance. Marks had turned Redwood Mercy into a fortress without anyone noticing. Elena stood in the ER, going through the motions of her shift, checking vitals, updating charts, pretending everything was normal while her skin crawled with the certainty that someone was watching. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. Nothing happened. At 2 a.m., Elena was starting to think they'd been wrong, that whoever was coming had seen through the trap and backed off. Then the power went out. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in red. Somewhere, an alarm started wailing. Staff scrambled, trying to figure out what happened. Elena's phone buzzed, a text from Marks. Breaker was blown. Manually. Someone's inside. She moved toward the stairwell, hand on the pepper spray clipped to her belt. Not much, but better than nothing. Behind her, she could hear Marks's team mobilizing, moving through the hospital like ghosts. The stairwell was dark. Elena took the stairs slowly, listening. Footsteps above her, fast, descending. She pressed herself against the wall, waited. A figure appeared on the landing above. Male, dark clothes, moving with purpose. Elena stepped out. Looking for someone? He spun, hand moving toward his waistband. She didn't give him the chance, sprayed him full in the face with pepper spray. He screamed, stumbled back, and she kicked his legs out from under him. He went down hard. Marx's team was there in seconds, securing him. But Elena was already moving, because there had been footsteps, plural. This wasn't a solo operation. She ran down the corridor, following her instincts. The ICU. That's where they'd go, where the most vulnerable patients were, where a single mistake could kill dozens. She burst through the ICU doors. The ward was dark except for emergency lights and the glow of monitors. Nurses were moving between patients, trying to keep everyone stable. And standing near Browning's bed, disconnecting his ventilator, was a woman in scrubs Elena had never seen before. "Stop!" The woman looked up, smiled, and pulled a pistol from her pocket. Elena dove sideways as the shot rang out. The bullet punched through a monitor, sparks flying. Patients started screaming. Nurses hit the floor. The woman aimed again. Elena grabbed a crash cart, shoved it toward her. The woman fired, missed, and then the cart slammed into her, sending her sprawling. Elena was on her before she could recover. Grabbed her wrist, slammed it against the floor once, twice, until the pistol fell free. The woman twisted, drove her elbow into Elena's ribs. Pain exploded. Elena's grip loosened. The woman rolled, grabbed the pistol, brought it up. And Mark shot her. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. The woman dropped, pistol clattering away, blood spreading across the floor. Marks moved forward, kicked the pistol away, checked for a pulse. "She's alive!" "Barely!" Elena pushed herself to her feet, ribs screaming, looked at Browning. His ventilator was still disconnected. His oxygen saturation was dropping. She reconnected it, checked his vitals. He was stable, unconscious, but alive. 3 attackers, Mark said, that we know of. Could be more. Elena shook her head. No, 3 is right. 2 to cause chaos. 1 to finish the job. Classic hit squad formation. How do you know? Because it's what I'd do. They spent the next hour securing the hospital. Found explosive charges in the basement. Small, but enough to cause panic. Disarmed them. Found another operative hiding in a supply closet, waiting for his moment. Arrested him. By dawn it was over. 4 operatives in custody, 0 casualties. And Elena was standing in the parking lot, watching the sunrise, feeling like she'd aged a decade overnight. Marks found her there. We got them talking, all 4, same story. They were hired through an intermediary, paid in cryptocurrency, never met their employer face to face. Dead end. Not quite. One of them had a phone, encrypted, but our tech guys cracked it. Found messages, coordinates, meeting locations. He paused. And a name. Senator Richard Castellano. Elena's blood went cold. The senator? The one on the Armed Services Committee? The same. Turns out he was one of Cress's biggest clients. Weapons deals, government contracts, all routed through shell companies. When Cress got arrested and started talking, Castellano panicked, decided to eliminate anyone who could connect him to the operation. Which included me. Which included you, and the defector, and probably a dozen other people we don't know about yet. Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Can you prove it?" Cress is cooperating, providing documentation, financial records, recorded conversations. And now we have the operative's testimony. It's enough for an indictment. Marks looked at her. It's over, Voss. You're safe. Elena wanted to believe him, but she'd heard those words before, from people who'd been wrong. What happens now? Now we arrest Castellano, prosecute everyone involved, dismantle the entire network. It'll take time, but we'll get them all. And me? You're free. You can go back to your life, or what's left of it. Elena looked at the hospital. At the building she'd spent 3 months trying to disappear inside. At the place that had become a battlefield. I don't know if I have a life anymore. Then make a new one. She almost laughed. Just like that? No, not just like that. It'll be hard. It'll take time. But you've survived worse. He paused. You're one of the best combat medics I've ever seen. The best, actually. You save lives. That's who you are. That's what you do. And the world needs more of that. Elena didn't respond because she didn't know what to say. Mark squeezed her shoulder once, then walked away. Elena stood alone in the parking lot, watching the hospital wake up. Staff arriving for the day shift, ambulances pulling in, the rhythm of life continuing like nothing had happened. Her phone buzzed. A message from Marissa. "Are you okay?" "I heard what happened." "Please tell me you're okay," Elena typed back. "I'm fine, just tired. Come inside, we need you." Elena stared at the message. Then she pocketed her phone and walked toward the entrance. Inside, the hospital was chaos. The overnight events had left everyone rattled. Staff were jumpy, patients were scared. The ER was overflowing with people who'd heard about the shooting and come in with panic attacks, chest pains, phantom symptoms born from fear. Elena moved through it all like a knife through water, calm, steady, exactly where she needed to be. She spent the next 12 hours working, treating patients, calming fears, saving lives. By the time her shift ended, she was so exhausted she could barely stand, but she felt something she hadn't felt in months. Purpose. 3 days later, Senator Castellano was arrested at his Georgetown home. The news coverage was relentless. Federal agents, handcuffs, perp walk, his face plastered across every screen in the country. The story broke wide open. Weapons trafficking, corruption, murder for hire. Names started falling like dominoes. Military contractors, government officials, corporate executives, all connected to the same network. And at the center of it all, the testimony of a combat medic who'd refused to stay silent. Elena watched it unfold from her apartment, the one she'd returned to after 3 days of staying in the safe house. It felt strange being back. The place had been cleaned, the photos removed, the blood scrubbed away, but she could still feel the weight of what had happened here. Her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, but when she saw the name on the screen, she picked up. "Browning. Voss, I heard you saved my life. Again. It's becoming a habit." He laughed, rough and real. "I'm being discharged today, heading back to base, but I wanted to say thank you for everything." "You don't need to thank me." "Yeah, I do. You could have walked away. Let someone else handle it. But you didn't. You stayed. You fought. You made sure people lived." He paused. "That matters." Elena felt something tighten in her chest. "Take care of yourself, Sergeant." "You too, ma'am." The line went dead. Elena set down her phone, and for the first time in a long time, she let herself cry. Not from fear, not from exhaustion, from relief, from release, from the knowledge that maybe, just maybe, she'd done something that mattered. A week later, Elena stood in front of the hospital board. They'd called her in for a meeting. She'd expected termination, expected them to tell her she was too much trouble, too much liability, too much risk. Instead, they offered her a promotion. "We want you to lead our trauma training program," the hospital director said. A woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. Teach staff how to handle mass casualty events, combat medicine techniques, crisis management, everything you know. Elena blinked. "Why me?" "Because you're the reason this hospital is still standing. Because when everyone else panicked, you kept your head. Because you saved lives when it should have been impossible." The director leaned forward. "We need people like you, not just as staff, as leaders." "I'm not a leader." "You already are. You just haven't accepted it yet." Elena looked at the faces around the table. People who'd ignored her for months, who'd treated her like she was invisible. Now they were looking at her like she was essential. "Can I think about it?" "Take all the time you need." Elena left the meeting in a daze, walked through the hospital corridors, past the ER where she'd spent countless shifts, past the locker room where she'd hidden, past the ICU where she'd fought for Browning's life. She found Marissa in the break room, drinking coffee that smelled like burnt rubber. "They offered you the promotion," Marissa said. Not a question. "How'd you know?" "Because everyone's talking about it. The mysterious nurse who turned out to be a decorated combat medic, who stopped a terrorist attack, who took down a senator." Marissa grinned. "You're kind of famous now." "I don't want to be famous." "Too bad. You are. So what are you going to do?" Elena sat down across from her. I don't know. Do you want my opinion? Not really. Marissa gave it anyway. Stay. Teach us. Help us be better, because you're right. Most of us don't know what we're doing when things go bad. We panic. We freeze. We make mistakes, but you don't. And if you can teach us even a fraction of what you know, we'll save more lives. Elena was quiet. Then she said, What if I'm not good at teaching? Then you'll learn, same way you learned everything else, by doing it. Elena almost smiled. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just never noticed. 2 months later, Elena stood in front of a classroom full of nurses, residents, and paramedics. The hospital's new trauma training facility, state-of-the-art equipment, simulation dummies, everything she needed to teach people how to save lives under impossible conditions. She'd been terrified the first day, convinced she'd fail, convinced they wouldn't listen. But they did. They hung on every word, took notes, asked questions, practiced until their hands were steady and their minds were sharp. And slowly, Elena started to understand what Marx had meant, about making a new life, about finding purpose in the wreckage. 6 months after the attack, Senator Castellano was convicted on 18 counts, sentenced to 40 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole. David Kress pleaded guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence, 25 years. He'd die in prison, and everyone knew it. The network he'd built was dismantled, assets seized, accounts frozen, dozens of people arrested. The investigation was still ongoing, but the damage was done. And through it all, Elena had testified, told her story, faced down lawyers who tried to discredit her, stood her ground. The day the verdict came down, Marx called her. We won. I know. You should be proud. I am, mostly. Mostly? Elena looked out her window at the city below. I keep thinking about all the people who didn't make it. The defector. The ones who were killed before we could stop them. The ones we'll never know about. You can't save everyone, Voss. I know, but I can try. Marx was quiet for a moment. Then he said, The army wants you back. They're offering you a position, training new medics, passing on what you know. I already have a job. I know, but the offer's there if you want it. I'll think about it. You always say that, and I always mean it. He laughed. Take care of yourself. You too, General. 1 year after everything had fallen apart, Elena stood in the same ER where it had all begun. But everything was different now. The hospital had rebuilt. The 4th floor was restored. New safety protocols, new training programs, new culture. And Elena was part of it. Not as a ghost, not as someone people ignored, as someone they looked up to, someone they trusted. She still worked shifts in the ER, still treated patients, still saved lives. But now she also taught, mentored, led. And slowly she'd learned to live with the nightmares, the memories, the weight of everything that had happened. She wasn't invisible anymore, and she'd stopped trying to be. Marissa found her near the end of her shift. There's someone here to see you. Elena looked up from the chart she was updating. Who? He wouldn't say, just asked for you specifically. Elena followed her to the waiting room, and there, sitting in a plastic chair, was Browning. He stood when he saw her. Still had a slight limp, but he was alive, thriving, actually. Sergeant, what are you doing here? I'm not a sergeant anymore, got promoted, lieutenant now. He smiled. And I wanted to see you, thank you, for real this time. You already thanked me. Yeah, but I wanted to do it in person. He pulled something from his pocket. A challenge coin. Military tradition. This is from my unit. For you. For everything you did. Elena took the coin. It was heavy, solid, real. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep doing what you're doing, because the world needs more people like you. Elena looked at the coin, at the man she'd saved, at the life that had continued because she'd refused to give up. I'll try. That's all anyone can do. After Browning left, Elena stood in the empty waiting room holding the coin, feeling its weight in her palm. She thought about everything that had happened, the fear, the violence, the impossible choices, the people she'd saved, the ones she couldn't. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, trying to disappear, trying to forget, trying to be nobody. And she thought about the woman she was now. Visible, present, necessary. It wasn't the life she'd planned, wasn't the quiet existence she'd wanted. But maybe that was okay. Maybe some people weren't meant to disappear. Maybe some people were meant to stand in the light and fight for those who couldn't. Maybe that was enough. Elena pocketed the coin, turned, and walked back into the ER. There were patients waiting, lives to save, work to do. And for the first time in years, she was ready for all of it. Not because she was perfect, not because she had all the answers, not because she was fearless, but because she'd learned something in the chaos and blood and impossible odds. She'd learned that being invisible wasn't the same as being safe, that hiding wasn't the same as healing, that the only way forward was through. She'd learned that strength wasn't about never being afraid. It was about being afraid and showing up anyway. She'd learned that justice wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was quiet, patient, relentless. And she'd learned that some battles chose you, and when they did, you could run, or you could fight. Elena had stopped running, and she wasn't about to start again. The ER doors opened, sirens wailed in the distance. Another ambulance, another patient, another life hanging in the balance. Elena snapped on a pair of gloves and moved forward, because this was who she was, who she'd always been, who she'd finally accepted she would always be. Not a ghost, not a shadow, not someone trying to disappear, but a fighter, a healer, a survivor, someone who saved lives, no matter the cost. And nothing, no threat, no fear, no enemy would ever change that. The ambulance pulled up, the doors opened, the paramedics rushed in, and Elena was there to meet them, exactly where she belonged.